What is going on, everybody? How's it going? We are back doing a Dynasty startup draft, and I'm joined by my brother and our father, Jeff, Brian, Dad. How's it going, guys?
How's everybody doing?
It's going good.
Almost your birthday, Dad?
Almost, so just more chances to collect Social Security to make sure you guys don't have any.
Yeah, it's exciting. You have any plans?
Going to Ventura Speedway Saturday night.
Nice.
Just
Now
watching
everyone knows where you live.
Yeah,
I'm gonna come stalk you.
Ventura County, California.
Well, there you go. And Mother's Day. Don't forget, it's Mother's Day here in Mexico. It's on the 10th. So, but I know it's Mother's Day in the U.S. and on Sunday. So take care of the mothers. But we're gonna get into the Dynasty startup draft. Superflex, 12 team. I think that's all right. I mean, half PPR, PPR. Something PPR. That's kind of what the standard is. And let's see. I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll see what spots. So, Brian, you're at the first overall. Dad, you're at the 4th, and I'm going to be at the 12th spots.
Dad's at 5.
Yeah, I moved to 5. Sorry.
That's all right. You are at the 5. I'm going to change this around. And yeah, I mean, we haven't done one of these yet, and this obviously includes rookies because we know their spots, their landing spots. But yeah, we're gonna get into it unless you guys have something to say.
No, not really. I know it's like I think the most interesting thing that's going to come out in this draft, because rookies are included here, right?
Yes, rookies are in here.
Yeah, so I think that'll be kind of interesting because to see where. So this will be closer to, well, I guess not necessarily, but I was going to say a little bit closer to a redraft startup or a redraft league for the year, but maybe not, I guess, because age is still a factor.
Yeah, we'll actually talk about that. How to balance age and good players. And by the way, we're going to kind of split this up. We're going to do like 3 rounds a video, maybe 4 rounds for one video. Probably just do like 10, maybe 11 rounds or something. So this video will just be rounds like 1 through 3, unless it goes super quick and we can squeeze one more in. But I'm going to start it. Brian, give you on the clock. You got it a minute and a half, so take your time. Again, this is Superflex.
While he's thinking about that, I just want to point out, a dynasty draft, if you're doing a startup dynasty draft, if you're, and you're seriously just starting a dynasty league, this is the team that you're going to live with for, as long as you're in this league. So you need to consider a couple things, maybe, at the end of the year, at the end of the NFL season, the league's not going to go away. You're going to have the guys next year. So try to consider that when you're drafting.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think it's a pretty easy choice at 1. It's kind of funny because it's not who it was last year, and I don't know why we ever doubted you, Mr. Mahomes, but he's got to be the number 1, right? Like in Dynasty Superflex.
I was actually going to ask you guys that. Is it for sure Mahomes or?
I don't know. I mean, the guy
was Allen last year.
The guy's already won 2 Super Bowls. Like and he did it while he was hurt this year. Like Josh Allen. Like I'm sure the running is going to slow down eventually. I'm not saying this year or next year or anything, but and not that he's not good without it, but I just feel like Mahomes is the most like the safest pick. Like I think he's going to continue to be good for, his career. I guess we'll see what happens when Kelsey retires and see if he's still good, but I think he's going to be.
I think the only other person I would consider here would be Joe Burrow.
1 overall.
Nice.
Yeah. But Mahomes, my scale tilts towards Mahomes, and Burrow would be 1A,
Yeah.
and then Josh Allen, and but you can see what the computer did for pick number 3. Justin Jefferson.
15 seconds, by the way.
Yeah.
Can
you pause it?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it should be Mahomes too, just because at this point we've seen him produce without the rushing. Essentially, I know he rushes for 300-400 yards probably every year, but it's not the focal point of his fantasy production. And we haven't really seen that with Josh Allen. So I think if he does slow down a little bit, that's something to maybe worry about. Like, what kind of fantasy numbers is he putting? If he's not rushing for 700 yards, and I think you'll still probably always get a lot of touchdowns. But I could see him going from, I'm just double checking what he had. Yeah, he's had 750 yards, 763 and 762 yards the last 2 years. So I can see him dropping down to like 500, which is significant. So I agree. It's Mahomes.
You can unpause the draft.
All right. Did you just get auto picked or?
No.
Yeah. I think, we are drafting with computers. We don't have a full draft here. I would probably say the first 6 picks should probably be quarterbacks. I know we did a Dynasty startup last year and it wasn't like that. I think Taylor went 3 or something. I would probably say Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Hurts, whatever, Lawrence, and maybe even Herbert, and then
yeah, I would say Herbert counts in there.
Yeah, and then
I'm kind of
probably
surprised to see why isn't Lamar Jackson either 6 or 7? I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause it here. So we'll talk about it. So, Dad, you're saying, well, where do you first of all for wide receivers? It's a super flex league. Where would you take? Who's your wide receiver 1, and where would you take them in the first round?
Well, Justin Jefferson, and I'd probably somehow, after all the big boy quarterbacks would be gone, since this is a 2 quarterback league. So 6, 7, I'd be comfortable.
So who's kind of like your last? So Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Hurts, Herbert, Lawrence. Those guys probably should be going first in the top 6.
I'm not sure if Lawrence is in that category yet. Everybody's anticipating it. It's like this build-up, this off-season build-up and hype that we get and stuff like that. That guy still kind of has to prove it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd rather have Herbert over Lawrence.
Absolutely. I'd rather have Lamar over Lawrence.
Oh, good. Interesting. Would you rather have Fields?
No, I'm not. I don't know. I'd have to I got to see the passing game improve.
Yeah, I would take Herbert over Fields and Lawrence and Lamar, honestly.
Yeah, I'd probably take Lamar over Lawrence as well.
I'd take Trevor Lawrence in the same category as Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I like that. I like putting those 2 guys together.
Even though Trevor's a little younger, everybody's expecting this big explosion.
Yeah, we've seen Watson be good, and everyone's kind of expecting it from Lawrence.
Yeah.
So
well, remember,
I like that.
Brian, we've talked about this on the phone. These hype trains that happened. Last year it was Gabe Davis, and I don't know. There was a couple other players that we got this off-season hype about, and everybody's expecting Trevor Lawrence, to take the next step, and he wasn't he wasn't great in the first half of the season. He was good enough.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are they expecting him to get to, the almighty God position?
Yeah.
Or, holy crap, man, that guy's good. And,
I think what it is it's people trying to get ahead of, even though like them saying it now is kind of like, well, you're already kind of a little behind, I mean, last year was a down year for quarterbacks, but I mean, they're trying to get ahead of it. Like, see, we always knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be good, even though after 2021, everyone's kind of like, shit.
Yeah. I predicted, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, he was just talking like a talking head. Yeah. So we had our first rookie go. Bijan Robinson. It's not Brian Robinson, by the way, in 111. Bijan Robinson. Do you guys agree? I know we talked about this a while back when we were talking about our running back rankings for Dynasty. And we didn't have the rookies ranked, but I mentioned I think Bijan's my RB1. Do you guys agree Bijan should be the RB1? Do you think it should be someone else?
Yeah,
go ahead,
honestly. Honestly, in a draft, I'm okay with it. I think kind of what I was saying, it's like, yeah, I think there's like 3 guys that I kind of hold in a little bit higher esteem as far as like, if they're on my team, I'm not necessarily like trying to get away from them. And I know it was Eckler and McCaffrey. Trying to think, maybe the other one was Breece Hall. I don't know.
For what? For
just running backs, like I'd rather. Not necessarily like I'm just thinking about like in this upcoming year. It's like I'd rather have definitely McCaffrey like before Bijan.
Yeah.
But we were talking about
redraft.
In redraft. Okay. But we were talking about in the dynasty perspective, and we are just kind of like, yeah, like I don't know. Like I'd feel a little bit weird like trying to get off of McCaffrey. I mean, if you could trade them straight up, like awesome. But I mean that wasn't gonna happen, kind of thing. So it was just kind of like, yeah, I think if you have McCaffrey on your team, like, I don't think you're packaging him with anything to try and move up to Bijan necessarily, unless it's something kind of cheap.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with like that he could be the number 1,
Yeah, I think he is.
Especially we haven't even seen him do it yet. I mean, that's I'm not saying he's going to. He should have 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns and 40, 50 receptions. The way they're talking, this guy's like Superman and stuff. So,
yeah. I mean, look at what Saquon did his rookie year. That's what people are
I know that's the comparison.
Maybe he won't have as many catches, but I don't know. I like Jonathan Taylor. Kind of, I think after his rookie year was probably in the debate for rookie RB1, So we're just kind of anticipating, like you said, 1,300 rushing yards and maybe 500 receiving yards, and we'll see how many touchdowns. So,
right.
So yeah, I'm fine with it. I would take a quarterback still. I think if Deshaun Watson's there, I'm probably taking Deshaun Watson. So,
honestly, I think the thinking by Team 11 there, the AI is thinking, like you're going to get a quarterback on the rebound, like easily. And so if you really like feel that strongly about Robinson as the RB1, it's like, I don't think that's a bad place to take him because, I mean, you're going to get to pick again in 2 picks. And even if, the other, or if you went quarterback, it's like, yeah, you could still probably get Dak or maybe
I still have PTSD from the year that I took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round.
Yeah.
So
scary stuff.
Well, that's because he was drafted by Kansas City and Andy Reid's going to do this and that.
Well, that's the biggest difference is we weren't paying attention. We weren't doing Dynasty at that point in 2020.
No.
And so we weren't paying attention to rookies, but all the Dynasty people said, if you were following basically from January and studying these guys, everyone that was doing that knew Jonathan Taylor was the better running back of the 2. And it was only because Clyde went to the Chiefs at the end of the first round, or maybe beginning of the second, I forget, end of the first, that That's the only reason why people started taking Clyde over Jonathan Taylor, was because of the landing spot, except for the people that were doing the process from January up through the draft. So, it's been Bijan since the beginning of 2022. At least since October of 2022, right? So
yeah, I mean, he was definitely the first rookie from this class that I ever even heard of, and that was about a year ago, around this time, kind of when we first drafted our startup guys to start our league. Like, it was like, oh, there's this guy coming out next year, Bijan Robinson. And I remember I mentioned him to you, Dad, and you're like, I don't know who that is, because you actually watch college football, but you can't watch it all. And I was I guess he's on Texas.
I remember that.
It's supposed to be good. I don't know.
And who's the guy that's risen up this year? It's Gibbs. Gibbs is, he's the one who's jumped over everybody, and so
I would say
buyer beware.
Atlanta now has taken Kyle Pitts 4th overall, Drake London 8th overall, and Bijan 8th overall. Their offense better be freaking good, right? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
But anything else we want to talk about here? I mean, Jefferson and Chase are kind of interchangeable for me. I'm not going to argue anything. Those are the top two. They're in their own tier. But I'm not going to, if you want to take Chase over Jefferson, there's nothing I can say about that, basically. So I'm going to I don't know if I would do this.
Do you want to recap the first round real quick? I mean, it's pretty easy just to
Yeah, they can see it. Okay. No, I will. Mahomes. Mahomes, Allen 1-2, and then Justin Jefferson 3. Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence 4, 5, 6, and then Jamar Chase went 7th. And then Herbert, Fields, Lamar went 8, 9, 10. Bijan at 111, and then I took Deshaun Watson at 112. And again, I think maybe I'm gonna shock some people here. I don't know if I would do this necessarily, but I'm taking Anthony Richardson at the 201. So we'll talk about that. Wow, no.
I know teams 7 and 11 are definitely computers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's arguments to be made there.
I mean, there is. Yeah, it depends on how you want to approach your team. Like, I don't think it's terrible starting off receiver, or running back, receiver, or running back. But you really gotta, you're taking a step down from your quarterbacks, and you gotta, you gotta.
But if you're starting Bijan Robinson and McCaffrey as your first two guys, then you can't really complain there.
Yeah, for sure. So only one other quarterback so far taken. I don't think that's how it would go in a super flex. I'd probably say there'd be a few more quarterbacks going, maybe. But maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. I think Kyler deserves to go. Bryce Young probably deserves to go. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not too many more quarterbacks should be going. I'm going to pause that if you make your pick.
Okay. I'll just go ahead.
All right. So we'll just recap it real quick. The second round went Anthony Richardson, 201. Christian McCaffrey went next. CD Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown is wide receiver 4, which is pretty amazing. Jonathan Taylor went at the 205. AJ Brown, and then Kenneth Walker, 207. Austin Eckler, 208. Jalen Waddle, 209. Breece Hall, 210. And then Dak Prescott and Bryce Young. So I think there's some interesting things to kind of take out of this. First of all, do you think any other quarterbacks should have gone in this second round? If you're looking at the quarterback list, we have Kyler, we have Stroud, we have Tua, Trey Lance.
Yeah, I'd say Tua's in that conversation for sure.
I'd say why not Daniel Jones
in the second round?
It's kind of pushing it, but he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback last year.
I understand. I'm just looking at taking out. So basically, are you taking Daniel Jones over AJ Brown? Are you taking Daniel Jones over?
No, I'm not.
Jalen Waddle. So that's what I'm basically saying, because you have to take it over
I'm
one
not,
of these
course. Yeah,
guys.
I
Kyler's the only one for me, to be honest. I still
yeah,
think he deserves.
I'm not high on that dude. So
Yeah, I know people aren't, but he's still good, and he still like has QB1 potential, in my opinion. So, um,
Yeah, honestly, I probably would have taken Kyler over Brees Hall because, as far as I'm concerned, they're kind of in a similar situation. Where it's like, we don't know if they're going to start. We don't even know. Well, I guess to a lesser extent, like we're pretty sure Brees Hall is going to play this year, but Kyler, you know, we've all kind of like heard about the. It's like, well, I mean, if Arizona is that bad, like say Kyler isn't supposed to come back till like week 6 or something, and if they're just shit in the bed, then it's like, well, why do you even play them? Just let it go, kind of. They've got good draft capital for next year too, and then they can let Kyler actually heal up and see what they got in their rookie, and there's all kinds of benefits for them not even playing him this year. So
Kyler's going to be unemployed next year.
No, he's not going to be unemployed.
No, yeah, he'll go somewhere. But
real quick, they are talking about him potentially being ready for the season. So
sure,
I don't know. I think it's still a little too early.
Yeah, I agree with that. But my point was with Team 3 that took Justin Jefferson, who's he's going to have a nice long career and he's going to continue to be good. And so Brees Hall being the running back, he's only this is only going to be his second season. But I just feel like the quarterbacks are a little more insulated. Like I probably would have been okay with taking Kyler there, and then when it loops back around, kind of like making a different decision. Like Saquon's still there, Jahmyr Gibbs. Like you don't have to necessarily it's not like if you're taking Kyler, you're throwing away the season necessarily. But I just feel like longer term, like he's going to have a longer career than Brees Hall. Or even honestly, just go after Garrett Wilson there or something.
Yeah. Well, Dad, do you want to say anything on? You were mentioning the quarterbacks. Brian said he thinks Tua second round. I think Kyler, and you said Daniel Jones, right? Would maybe.
Yeah, but if you're looking at a second quarterback, I just look at how Daniel Jones scored last year, and I know his passing numbers weren't great and everything else, and he's not throwing for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns every week. But
what about receivers? So the top 6 receivers according to this draft is Jefferson, Chase. No one can argue. CeeDee Lamb is fair, I think, as the wide receiver 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is a big jump up from where he was last year, deservedly so. A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle. Do you think there's any other receivers in here? I'll start with one. I mean, I think Garrett Wilson. I can make an argument for him being my wide receiver 3. I think he's that good.
Well, why not? Why not Tyreek Hill? So.
Yep, Tyreek Hill too. That's the next. Well, first so Tyreek Hill in here. I think Garrett Wilson. Any others do you think deserve to kind of go here? I mean, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I don't see a spot where I could actually fit him in front of these guys. I feel like Diggs is definitely in that conversation with all of these kind of these second group of guys for the most part. I have my order that I would like, but I think he could easily be in there, at least at the very least, at the end of all these guys.
Yeah. I don't know. I think after this year, and I've mentioned this before, I think we're going to be talking next year Dynasty startup. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, or Garrett Wilson. We're going to be talking about those 3 receivers. Who do we take? I think Garrett Wilson's going to make that big of a jump, and I think he's that good. So now an interesting pick here. I mean, McCaffrey, Taylor, Walker, Eckler. Brian? What do you kind of balance when you're doing this startup draft of veteran players versus young guys? Eckler, probably has one more year with the Chargers, and that's it. And we don't know what he's going to be after that. How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, I mean, I like starting right there at pick number 6, where Ken Walker went. Like, I would have taken Dak over Walker, Eckler, Waddle, or Brees Hall. Honestly, that would be my big difference, and basically kind of like shift all those guys down a little bit. I guess it kind of depends on. If I had Trevor Lawrence, I don't know if I'd be going after Eckler necessarily. Like, I'm just thinking about like pairings, because it's like if Lawrence doesn't actually step up, then Eckler might be, you're going to like maybe fall out of his window potentially. I like Eckler with Hurts as a combo for the 1-2, the first and second round. I think it's like thinking like a little bit more like win now kind of thing. I mean, it's still so early though, so it's just depends on like I think it's a little too early to like really have an established strategy necessarily.
Yeah. Dad, what about you? How do you balance the youth versus veteran balance in the Dynasty startup draft?
It's something you got to think about. I'm not sure, and we see that, I guess, Kenneth Walker in his second year. Well, now he's going to share the backfield, so.
By the way, Brian, I'm going to start the draft, just so you know, Brian. But go ahead, Dad.
Yeah,
okay,
I think I don't know, man. After you're probably going to get 1 year out of him, in the current fantasy capacity, and he is getting a little older, but I don't think he's toast or anything, but
yeah, it's hard to justify Eckler over like Garrett Wilson or Tyreek Hill, or even Brees Hall or Waddle. Like, it's hard to. I think I'd push Eckler to like the third round, at this point.
Yeah,
but to me,
along with their buddy Saquon and everything. So, I was kind of considering. So here's a thought that kind of went through my head before I picked Bryce Young at the end of the second. I was kind of like, all right, I got Mahomes. What if I just went after Garrett Wilson and Kyle Pitts? As so it's kind of like, all right, I'm very young, and obviously like we haven't seen it like as much as we wanted from Kyle Pitts, but I think you brought it up previously, Mike. It's like, well, let's not forget he was pretty good. He got 1,000 yards in his rookie season, which is a record. It's just no touchdowns and everything. And then last year he got hurt.
Yeah.
So I think that would be kind of an interesting build to go with the young receiver. Arguably the best in the class last year. The best actual quarterback that's already proven it by winning 2 Super Bowls. And the dude's only been playing for 5 years?
Yeah.
And then Kyle Pitts, like the huge prospect at tight end. Like I was really thinking that, and I was kind of like, well, I think by taking Travis Kelce as the first pick in the third round, it's kind of like, all right, like I'm gonna be more focused on just winning now, because Bryce Young doesn't necessarily have to really fit that. Like he doesn't have to be as good depending on who I get as my QB3/2, I guess. So that's going to be kind of like what I'm focusing on in these next, I guess it'll be in the next video, but I'm going to be looking for maybe a more short-term solution at QB2 and then just start slamming those receivers and running backs. But I think Mahomes and Kelce combo will be hard to beat.
Yeah, for sure. So just recapping that third round, Kelce and then Garrett Wilson went. CJ Stroud, our third rookie quarterback on at 303. Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Jahmyr Gibbs. Kyler Murray goes at the 307, which I think is a pretty big steal there. Saquon Barkley, Chris Olave, Kyle Pitts at 310. Jackson Smith and Jigba, the first rookie receiver, taken at 311, and then I took Najee Harris at 312. So real quick, one thing I'll say is with Team 7, if I can start Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, and still get Kyler in the third round, I'm really, really liking my draft there. I maybe, I'm going to need a couple more quarterbacks probably pretty early, just because, Kyler's going down maybe the first month or so, potentially. But I really like that start.
Would you take Kyler Murray over Bryce Young?
Yes, I would.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I would. I'd definitely take him over Stroud, over Dak. Yeah, I might even take him over Anthony Richardson. I kind of did that in this video, took Anthony Richardson, but might even take him over Anthony Richardson. And then I like Garrett Wilson, 302. I think is really good value too. So, Dad, what about you? You went Tyreek Hill. So kind of starting Hurts, Eckler, Hill.
Yeah. I'm always in the back of my mind, who's going to give me more points and stuff like that. So these are proven fantasy point scorers. So that's how I'm hoping it stays.
Yeah. And you can always trade them. Like, I think people put a little bit too much stock into age. Like, Tyreek Hill still has 2-3 good years in him, and you can always trade them for if your team kind of sucks, right? They're going to be good. So your team's either going to be good because of them, or you're going to be able to kind of trade them away if they're not injured. So that's kind of how I look at that as well. You going to say something, Brian?
I was just kind of looking at Team 11 again. I'm just kind of looking at all right, who are the next quarterbacks up, and how is that going to play out? Back to what the comment you made, Dad, about Daniel Jones. I was kind of just looking at ADPs and stuff, and I was kind of well, it'd be really nice if I could get Daniel Jones at the end of the 4th round, but I don't know if he makes it that far in Superflex. But they have him at 70 overall with an ADP of 61.5.
Yeah.
So that kind of surprised me a little bit, where it's wow, he's really far down there. I would not mind having him as a QB2, especially if I kind of changed it a little bit. Like I was saying, if I did take Mahomes, Wilson, and Kyle Pitts, and then getting Daniel Jones in the 4th pick, I would have liked that.
Yeah. What do you guys think of Najee Harris? I took Najee Harris at the 312. That's a pretty big drop off, I'd say, for him. What's that? Running back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Running back 8 now. What's your guys' opinion on Najee Harris?
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, the guy's going to carry the ball, close to 300 times, or he'll have 300 touches either way. His first year he had almost 400. Then I'm looking at 307 rush attempts, 74 catches. Last year 272 and 41. It's 300 touches for anybody. You know what his role is going to be. We know how the Steelers use their running backs. So he took a little while to get going last year, but that's all right.
The Steelers have really improved their offensive line in the offseason.
Yeah.
I've been watching that because I have Najee on a current Dynasty team. So they really put a lot of into their offseason. So let's hope it equates into. We haven't seen Najee. He gets a lot of touches. He gets the ball thrown to him. He's a good player. We just haven't seen dominating type performances, I guess, on the level of McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor there for that 1 year. And
the nice thing is though, where you're getting him, you don't need him to be that necessarily. He definitely has a high ceiling because of all the volume that he's going to get, and a pretty safe floor, I would say, too. So,
yeah, I would say if this is how people are valuing him as RB8, I would go out and try and trade for him, maybe get him a little cheaper. If you can trade a late 1st round pick, if you haven't done your rookie drafts yet for him, or, whatever you want to trade for him. I think he's a good player. He was RB5 the last 5-6 weeks of last year after he got like his steel foot taken out of his shoe or something like that. So
Yeah, that's how he started the season. That's right.
and yeah, when he got that taken out, he was doing a lot better. And Steelers have a history of they have their guy and they give the guy 250, 300 touches every year.
Yeah.
You know, they did it with Le'Veon, they did it with James Conner. Now they're doing it with Najee. Like they didn't draft anyone.
Yeah, they didn't draft anybody. So
I mean, I can see it. I like the bargain for Najee.
Yeah, and I think like kind of on that same note, like I know we're doing a startup and everything, but you know, Jalen Warren might be a good buy low target right now as his handcuff. You know, like we obviously saw him do some stuff. If you can go get him for a third rounder or something like that, you should probably do that.
Yeah, especially if you have Najee.
Especially if you have Najee. Yeah, I was just saying in general.
Real quick, and before we wrap this up, 2 rookies went here. Jahmyr Gibbs, JSN. Does that shock you at all that Gibbs is going in the middle of the third or JSN at the end of the third, Dad? Or do you think this is kind of just looking at a couple of the running backs that are still there, ETN, Josh Jacobs, Devontae, Ramondre Stevenson?
Yeah, it seems a little it seems a little premature, especially, you know, JSN going, you know, we still have Cooper Kupp, Metcalf, Devontae Adams, Devontae Smith,
Higgins,
T. Higgins, you know,
Mark Andrews.
All those guys are very established wide receivers, so it's a little early in my book.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wouldn't have taken him till there in the 4th round or something. Like I would definitely take basically everyone who went after him. Like I would have taken Kyler Murray, Saquon, Olave, Najee Harris, T. Higgins, you know, the guys Dad mentioned. Like I would have taken Tua in front of him in a super flex. Yeah, I think it is like at least a full round too early, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the JSN. T. Higgins, I'd take. If you want to go youth, I understand taking him over Cooper Kupp, but I mean Metcalf, Devontae Smith, even Drake London, I'd have to think about that. I haven't really thought about that, but I'd probably go JSN actually, but I really do need to think about that one. But there's a couple receivers I would take over them. Not to mention the team needs a quarterback. So
yeah, well, and I mean, just from their first 3 picks, I mean, obviously it's a computer based on ADP, but I mean they got Lawrence, Walker, and Gibbs, so they're very young, you know, and I'd say kind of unproven at this point. So it's like I think Higgins would have been a decent like trade-off there as far as like he's still young and we've seen it before. Metcalf I think would fit there better too, even Devontae Smith. I'm not saying I'd necessarily take those guys like in the 3rd round. I'm just kind of saying like I think those are kind of better fits for the team to try and like balance it out a little bit. Because if you're going to build, I mean, obviously it's a computer, so we don't know if it's actually doing this, but if it's building a young team, kind of, it's like, well, don't build through your running backs necessarily.
Yeah.
It even took Olave. I know we're talking about JSN. I mean, Olave is a nice wide receiver, but there's still some other guys that are slightly better than him, and it could be in the algorithm for computer drafting. It could be age could be definitely a factor. So
I think that team would be better off if it had drafted Waddle in the 2nd and Olave in the 3rd. Again, not saying that's not what I would have done, but it's like I would have liked that team a little bit better if it went with the 2 receivers.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to say about the 3rd round, or we'll kind of end it and then we'll be back with starting with round 4?
Yeah, end it. Well,
good.
I thought the one interesting thing was, I mean, obviously everyone can see it, but Kelsey went at the beginning. Pitts went kind of at the end of the round. Mark Andrews is still on the board, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a temperature check for tight ends in general.
I'm curious to see where Kelsey would have gone had you not taken him.
He was actually his ADP was pretty close to where I took him. Like I didn't have to scroll very far to find him.
Yeah.
So I think he is like on a lot of sites and Mark Andrews, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of like pivoting a little bit on what I want to do as far as like I'm kind of going to go for a win now team, I think, and see how that works out.
Yeah, I think Pitts is probably still my dynasty tight end one, but I'm not going to. Again, it's one of those things like you're going to sound stupid trying to argue against Kelsey or something. So
yeah,
but yeah,
shut up, Mike.
We'll wrap it up there, and we'll be back. If you're still around, like the video, subscribe. We are at 169 subscribers. We've gotten about 20 over the last week, I'd say. So getting closer to 200. Appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys next time.